Spring crept soft over Hollow Creek that year, slow as breath through prayer. The snow had melted into muddy ribbons, and the air smelled of thawing earth and smoke from cook stoves. Old Man Grady would later say that was the season the widow Holloway stopped smiling, and that when she did, the town got smaller somehow. Like the hills had folded closer around her. Clara May Holloway walked down Main Street that morning with a wicker basket on her arm and the weight of a dozen whispered words following behind. The wooden boards creaked beneath her boots. Sunlight glanced off the church steeple, then dimmed as she passed under the shadow of the general store porch. A bell chimed, and just like that, the murmurs began. "She's a sweet one," someone said. Sweet? Sure, but too wide to wet again. Laughter, not cruel, but careless. The kind that bruises deeper than a blow. Clara pretended not to hear. She kept her eyes on the floorboards, the lace hem of her plain gray dress brushing the dust. At the counter, Martha Dean, sharp as vinegar and twice as biting, measured out flour with deliberate slowness. Each scoop a pause long enough for the gossip to grow another limb. "Lost another husband, didn't she?" Martha said, voice thick with false sympathy. "Shame. A woman that size needs a strong back to keep her steady." The laughter this time was softer. Embarrassed, but no one stopped her, Clara smiled faintly, as if kindness could be armor, and placed her coins on the counter. "Thank you kindly, Mrs. Dean," she said, her voice low, steady, graceful even in humiliation. When she stepped out into the light, she tilted her face toward the wind. It carried the scent of pine and horse sweat and far-off rain. She let it wash the sting from her eyes. Out near the hitched wagons, two little girls played with sticks in the dust, twins, all freckles and braids, their giggles bright enough to split the gray morning in half. Clara's basket slipped. Flour burst open in a soft white cloud. One of the girls ran forward. "I'll help, ma'am," she chirped, dropping to her knees. Her twin joined her, small hands brushing Clara's as they gathered the spilled grain. "Why, thank you, darlings," Clara said, surprised by their cheer. A shadow fell over them. The girls looked up as their father approached, tall, broad-shouldered, with a kind of quiet gravity in his step. Eli Cooper, the rancher from the North Ridge. His hat brim dripped from the morning's melt, his hands rough, steady, and sure. "June, Lottie," he said gently. "Mind your manners." "They are," Clara said quickly, kinder than most grown folks. He met her eyes then, really looked. There was a flicker of something she couldn't name. Not pity, not interest, just a quiet recognition. "Ma'am," he said with a nod. "Mr. Cooper." The twins grinned between them. "Daddy, she smells like pie." One of them announced that. Eli's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. The townsfolk nearby fell silent, watching. Clara felt the heat rise in her face. She gathered her basket, thanked them softly, and hurried away before the moment could grow heavy. By evening, the gossip had doubled. When Sunday came, the church hall was strung with lanterns for the spring supper. Baked beans, ham, cornbread, pies on the long tables. Clara stood at the doorway, clutching a dish of apple preserves like a shield. Conversations dulled when she entered. She found an empty seat near the back, folded her hands, and tried to be invisible. Then came laughter, high, innocent, and the Cooper twins rushed in, dragging their father behind. "There she is," they cried, pulling him toward her table. Eli gave a polite nod, unsure, but allowed the girls to settle beside Clara. They asked about her preserves, about her house near the creek, about her old dog that barked at clouds. Their voices filled the quiet space that the town's judgment had left hollow. When a pitcher tipped over mid-supper, Clara reached instinctively, catching it before it shattered. Her hand brushed Eli's. For a second, time seemed to slow, the hum of voices fading beneath the flicker of lantern light. Their eyes met, then Martha Dean's voice cut through the air. "Careful, Eli. Some folks eat enough for two men and still want another." The laughter was sharp this time, brittle as broken glass. Clara froze. The blood drained from her face. She set the pitcher down, folded her hands, and stood. The room went silent as she walked toward the door, each step echoing. No one stopped her. Outside, the air was cool and smelled of rain. She breathed deep, blinking back tears, and began the long walk home along the ridge road. Thunder rumbled. The first drops fell heavy as coins. She drew her shawl tight and pressed on. The storm broke fast, wind howling, lightning cleaving the sky. Down the valley road, Eli Cooper's wagon rolled slow through mud, the twins huddled under a tarp. A sudden crack, the wheel split clean in two, throwing the wagon sideways. The horses screamed. Eli cursed under his breath, pulling the girls close as the rain poured in sheets. "Daddy, we're cold." June whispered as he glanced toward the ridge. A faint light glowed in the distance, an abandoned barn. "Come on," he said, lifting them from the wagon. "We'll wait it out there." The door groaned open. Inside, a single lantern burned low. And there, kneeling beside it, was Clara May Holloway, drenched, trembling, her shawl torn but her eyes alive with surprise. "Oh," she gasped softly. I didn't think anyone," the twins squealed. "Miss Clara." They rushed to her side before Eli could speak. She knelt to embrace them, laughter breaking through the storm's roar. "You two again," she said, brushing wet hair from their faces. "You're soaked through." Eli stepped inside, shaking the rain from his hat. "Didn't mean to intrude. Wagon's busted." "Then you'll stay till morning," she said simply, lighting another lantern. "No sense catching your death." They built a small fire from the dry scraps left behind. The warmth spread slow. Clara draped a blanket around the girls, humming under her breath, a tune from her childhood, soft and low. Eli sat a few feet away, silent, his eyes on the flames. When the girls drifted to sleep, Clara glanced at him. "I used to hum that for my husband when he came in from the mines," she said quietly. "He liked it best when it rained." Eli nodded. "I remember that sound. Heard it once on the wind, maybe." She smiled faintly, unsure if he was teasing. The fire cracked. Lightning flashed through the slats, silvering the wet boards. "Thank you," he said finally. "For what?" "For being kind to my girls." Her eyes softened. "Nobody thanks me much these days." He looked up, meeting her gaze. "They ought to." For a long moment, neither moved. The rain drummed steady on the roof. The twins stirred in their sleep, curling against Clara's lap. Eli watched her stroke their hair, and something changed, something small and quiet, like a man remembering the warmth of sunlight after too many winters. The fire burned low. Outside, the thunder rolled away into silence. Inside the barn, 3 lanterns glowed soft around them, a circle of warmth in a world that had turned its back. And for the first time in a long time, Clara May Holloway didn't feel alone. Morning came slow, gray, and heavy with the scent of wet hay. When Clara opened her eyes, the storm had passed, leaving a pale ribbon of sunlight slanting through the gaps in the boards. The twins still slept against her, their breath soft, small hands curled in her shawl. For a moment, she watched them, warmth stirring where shame had lived too long. Eli was already awake, mending the wagon wheel outside. The steady rhythm of his hammer reached her through the walls, low and patient. She rose quietly, tucked the blanket around the girls, and stepped into the morning light. "Wheels cracked clean through," he said, without looking up. "But I reckon she'll roll till we reach town." Clara nodded. Storm washed out the lower road. "Take the ridge instead. Less mud." He paused, glanced up at her. "You know these hills well." "I had to," she said softly. "When folks stop coming to you, you start learning your own way home." Something passed between them, an understanding not made of words. But before either could say more, the sound of hoofbeats approached. Sheriff Amos Rudd rode into view, hat low, eyes curious. "Morning, Eli." "Miss Holloway." He tipped his hat, gaze shifting between them and the barn. "Storm treated y'all kind?" Eli nodded. "We took shelter here overnight." The sheriff's expression flickered, not unkind, but wary. "Town's already talking," he said quietly. "You know how they are." Clara's shoulders stiffened. Eli's jaw tightened. "Let him talk," he said, voice low. The sheriff sighed, tugged his reins. "Just thought you should know." He rode off slow, leaving the road thick with unspoken things by the time the wagon rattled back into Hollow Creek. Eyes were already watching from behind curtains. Martha Dean's voice carried across the street, sharp as a crow's caw. "Well, if it ain't the widow and the rancher," she said loudly, hands on her hips. "Didn't waste much time, did she?" Clara kept her chin high, though her stomach nodded. Eli said nothing, but the twins, innocent and unbothered, waved proudly from the wagon bed. "Bye, Miss Martha," they sang. "We had an adventure." The woman's mouth snapped shut, and for once, Silence followed them down Main Street. For days after, the whispers didn't fade. They grew, curling through the town like smoke. Talk of sin, of shame, of improper company. Clara stayed indoors, sewing by candlelight, pretending the world was smaller than it was. Yet every knock on the door made her heart jump. Point one morning. It wasn't gossip at her doorstep. It was laughter. Point two, bouquets of wildflowers, held in tiny hands. Miss Clara. The twins chimed in unison. Daddy said you should come to church with us. You can sit by us this time. Clara blinked, caught between joy and fear. Oh, sweethearts. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. June begged. We picked you flowers. Lottie added shyly. Daddy said folks only talk 'cause they're bored. Clara looked past them. Eli stood by the fence, hat in hand, eyes steady. Not pleading, not demanding, simply offering her a place in the world again. Her heart trembled. All right, she whispered. Let me find my shawl. That Sunday, Hollow Creek streets were lined with wagons and gossip. But when Clara walked through town wrapped in her faded blue shawl, heads turned for another reason. Not cruelty this time, curiosity, defiance. She carried herself like someone who'd remembered her worth. Inside the church, pews creaked as people shifted. Eli sat tall beside her, his daughters between them like small candles of courage. The preacher's sermon that morning was about mercy, about how judgment blinds and grace restores. His words hung heavy in the air. Clara's eyes lowered, but then she felt it, the gentle weight of Eli's hand resting over hers. He didn't look at her. He didn't need to. That simple gesture said everything the town could never understand. When the service ended, silence stretched as they stood. Then the twins reached for Clara's hands and held them proudly as they walked into the sunlight. Outside, Martha Dean stood with her arms crossed. Brave of you to show your face, she said coolly. Clara opened her mouth, but Eli spoke first. Brave's one word, he said. Decent's another. You might try it sometime. Martha flushed crimson. Around them, the townsfolk murmured, not in mockery this time, but something closer to shame. The twins tugged at Clara's skirt. Can we ride home with you? She hesitated, but Eli nodded. We'll all ride together. The wagon moved slow through golden afternoon light, wheels creaking over the ridge road. The girls laughed at butterflies. Eli hummed softly under his breath. Clara's shawl fluttered in the wind. For the first time, she felt sunlight on her skin without flinching from it. That night, a new storm rose, not from the sky, but from fire. Lightning struck Eli's barn, splitting the old roof in two. The flames leapt fast, swallowing hay and timber. By the time the bell rang through Hollow Creek, the night was alive with smoke. Clara saw the glow from her window. Without thinking, she grabbed her shawl and ran barefoot through the mud. The townsfolk gathered in a trembling circle, shouting orders, forming bucket lines. Eli was already there, his shirt scorched, his daughters crying by the well. The horses are out, someone yelled. But the fire's spreading. Eli's face twisted in panic. My father's photo box, it's still inside. Before he could move, Clara was already running toward the flames. Clara, no! He shouted. The heat roared around her. Smoke clawed at her lungs. She pushed through, skirts catching sparks, eyes stinging. In the back corner, she found the old wooden box, half buried beneath cinders. She clutched it to her chest and stumbled toward the light. Strong arms caught her at the door, Eli dragging her out into the rain that had just begun to fall. They tumbled to the dirt together as the roof collapsed behind them. When the smoke cleared, the crowd fell silent. Clara's face was blackened with soot, her shawl torn. But in her arms she held the box, safe. Eli knelt beside her, his breath ragged. Eyes wide with disbelief and awe, the twins broke from the crowd, running to her. We want this one, Daddy. June cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. We want this one. Lottie echoed her sister, clutching Clara's hand. Eli looked at them, then at Clara. In that moment, something in him gave way, the wall between fear and truth that he reached up, brushing the ash from her cheek with a trembling hand. I reckon I do too, he said softly, and one laughed. Not a soul dared. The rain fell harder, hissing against the last embers. The twins clung to Clara, and for the first time, the widow did not shrink from being seen. Old Man Grady would later tell it this way, that in the ashes of that barn, the whole town learned what love really looked like. Not the kind from stories or hymns, but the quiet kind, built from courage and small kindnesses. From standing beside someone when the world turns away, he'd end his tale the same every time. Folks still whisper about that night. Not the fire, not even the scandal. They whisper about the look on her face when that man she saved looked at her like she was the only light left in the world. The wind through the prairie grass, the fading glow of dawn, the sound of distant laughter, all linger as his voice softens. In this life, love don't always come loud or pretty. Sometimes it comes like rain on a barn roof, quiet, steady, sure. And if you're lucky, it finds you after the storm, when you've stopped trying to be small enough to deserve it. And then the story ends, with Clara standing on the Cooper porch, the twins wrapped in her arms, Eli beside her, watching the sunrise break clean over the hills. The wind carries her laughter out across Hollow Creek, and this time, nobody whispers at all.